are battling it out to secure themselves a spot. We've got 3 matches right now, 4 matches where the winner is pretty much locked up for cut. This is an important match because both these players need 2 wins to secure themselves a spot. Tie and a win doesn't really do them what they need. 2 losses, of course, aren't going to get them there either. Both these players running interesting decks, not really in the most popular. Andrew Kenneth has been on this Regigigas deck for multiple months, has found success with Regigigas, has gotten to tops of regional championships. And over on Sammy Sosa's side, Israel Sosa's brother, running the same deck, running it back with the Hisuian Gudra V-Star.
Yeah, this is a nightmare, I would say, for Drew. He has started the tournament at 8-0-1, high expectations, expecting to at least be in the top 8 easily. Sure enough, a hard road ahead of him, as now is at 9-2-2 and is facing a lot of trouble, especially with double Regis.
Oh, that is so terrible. Of course, you do have Hisuian Heavy Ball, but you've only got one of them in the deck. That is not what you want to see. And this is a matchup that Drew has not played a lot throughout this tournament. Hisuian Gudra V-Star is not a deck many players have prepared to face. As we see the Temple of Sinnoh, that is also a key card potentially. Of course, because Regigigas is only playing special energy cards.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about Hale Olbernarti's run earlier on, and the magic happened because he played against a bunch of Regigigas, and it just lined up so easily. It's such the Hisuian Gudra V-Star is such a difficult Pokemon for this deck to knock out, and we'll see if Andrew is up for the task.
There is the path to the peak going down, immediately grabbed. This is a deck that wants to utilize Radiant Greninja early on in the early turns to just try and draw some more cards. It's Quick Ball, getting rid of Aurora Energy, exactly what you want to see in the first turn. Get those Pokemon into play, start to assemble your Regigigas crew, while also discarding these energy that can be brought back with Ancient Wisdom.
Yeah, try to assemble the crew. I dare you. It's going to be pretty difficult when you are missing the blue guy.
You can bring your friends to the party, you can gather everybody up, but if it's not enough, if the thing standing in front of you is tanking so much damage, and of course Dragon types not having any weakness, this deck loves to have that option to hit Pokemon for double damage.
Well, thankfully, the Hisuian Heavy Ball is going to be a card featured in the list. We've seen Drew decide not to play it sometimes, go with the one Registeel sometimes. He's done all sorts of things with this list, but it'll at least be an out.
It seems that every time we put Drew on stream, there's something happening with his Regi Pokemon not wanting to show up to the party, and that's the same case here. Path to the peak and just passing over the turn. And what a great way for Sam to start off this turn. Has the Battle VIP Pass, Capture Energy in hand. Radiant Greninja cannot be utilized, so at the peak, maybe coming in clutch here for Andrew.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily want to play down the Temple of Sinnoh too early. Of course, you've got cards like the Capture Energy, so you got to make sure your sequencing is right there, but it doesn't hurt him too much, and you'd like to get maximum use of this card at the right stage of the game. Maybe when the Regigigas players played down a lot of their cards and they're really focused on maybe getting use of that gift energy, then playing this card down and getting a big knockout.
There's Battle VIP Pass, of course, the most powerful searching card in the game, I would say without a doubt on the first turn. It's exactly what you want to be looking for. Already looking to grab this Hisuian Gudra V-Star. Now, this deck is not playing as many aggressive switching outs as some of the other Lost Zone decks in the format, but how important is it on these first turns to utilize flower selecting as much as possible? Oh,
this is absolutely crucial. Getting at least 2 cards into the Lost Zone is necessary. 3 feels like the magic number to being able to use this the Gudra V-Star on the second turn. If you can get that going, then you have access to the Mirage Gate, most likely. And we are missing 1 card from this, and it's going to be the Colress's Experiment, so maybe that would be a huge find here off of the Comfy.
A tough choice because you want the Hisuian Gudra V-Star off of this, but at the same time, you don't have any draw support in your hand. You can't use Radiant Greninja. Forced to get rid of this Hisuian Gudra V-Star. Is playing something that is uncommon in Pokemon, a 2-3 line of Hisuian Gudra, and what is the reason for that?
Yeah, well, it's so easy to find the basic, but not exactly the evolution, and we've seen this before in some Pokemon decks before. I think back to the old Claydol lines of old, where you can find the Baltoy so simply, and you just need to trawl into that evolution Pokemon.
Well, great find off of the second flower selecting. Has Battle VIP Pass, already 2 cards in the Lost Zone, and can find another Comfy and potentially another Hisuian Gudra. Samuel understands how powerful having Hisuian Gudra V-Star this matchup. All that needs to happen is just continuously attacking with it. And that's not even putting the fact that it can heal itself eventually, too.
Yeah, you've got so many ways to continue to stick around. And if you have multiple of them, then certainly you're not going to miss any opportunities to take prize cards.
So one of these flower selectings have been used. No energy has come down for turn yet. And there's a few ways this can happen. You either see the energy attachment on the active, which is a great way to have a pivot guaranteed, potentially off of a supporter, or looks like potentially the energy on the bench. But I like this play of the capture energy in the active because if you're just going to play Marnie right away after this, you might as well have a guaranteed way to maybe look at some more cards this turn.
We'll see what the find is here. Maybe just go for another Comfy and just maybe have access to chain even more of them together. The Cramorant you can always grab, of course. It doesn't line up fairly well with the knockout potential, and you're not going to be cashing in on a card like Sableye with this deck. But maybe two of these Cramorant shots with the Lost Provision could work out to get one prize card while you're getting set up.
We'll see the retreat first into Comfy. If you find Colress's Experiment here, you might as well go and play it, but looks like finding Marnie and Mirage Gate already playing one. We don't see this Lost Zone engines or many Lost Zone engines play cards like Marnie. It makes more sense to just sometimes play even things like Pokegear to draw more cards, but it's a good disruption out. It draws you cards in the early game, and sure, Colress's Experiment is a better supporter card to play, but you'd rather play that supporter like a Marnie than play no supporter on your turn.
Yeah, this is the ultimate hybrid deck, I would say. You get the use of the Lost Engine, you get to play some interesting supporter cards along with the Colress's Experiment, and we've seen that even with the Hisui and Goodra decks with the Arceus, they would be using the Colress's Experiment just because they like seeing as many cards as possible. So when the Lost Zone actually provides a little bit of an impact, it's nice to see that Mirage Gate get used.
So even though Regice is in the prize cards, Drew's got to do everything in his power to just dig through the deck as much as possible, because the only card that's going to save him is that one of Hisuian Heavy Ball. We've seen Regigigas under things like item lock and knocking out a single Regi Pokemon, things like neutralizing gas. And let me tell you, it is not a pleasant sight to watch this deck function without using Ancient Wisdom.
I hesitate to say that it would function because it just doesn't. When you have to manually attach all of these energy cards at the right time, and you're also fighting through what looks to be 3 Temple of Sinnoh, it's bad news.
Yesop really looking to find Hisuian Heavy Ball, can at least search one of the remaining 2, or the only remaining Regi Pokemon that's not already in play in deck. Out with this Regigate attack. Nothing else can be played. No energy cards. Choice Belt is not a card you really want to commit down this early. And I mean, so far, Samuel has no clue this Regice is prized. Andrew has done nothing to indicate that. But in these next coming turns, if there's no Hisuian Heavy Ball, I think it's going to be pretty clear what is missing from Andrew's deck.
Yeah, if you see any Quick Ball used, or maybe a Professor's Research throwing away an item card that could have found this Pokemon, you're definitely going to know that the jig is up. And it's such an awkward position to be in as Andrew, because of course you can get this Regi draw every once in a while, but when you do it and you have that one out, it's so hard to find. It just feels even more devastating.
So Samuel's going to take this opportunity to utilize as many flower selectings as possible. And a tough draw, the 2 cards. You do find Colress's Experiment, but you have to get rid of this Temple of Sinnoh. You know one is prized, so only 1 remaining in the deck. But this is the supporter card you're looking for. Colress's Experiment, going to put the Lost Zone up to 7 cards. Already has gotten rid of a single Mirage Gate. Has some solid choices. None of those are Mirage Gates, but there are a few pivoting options, which could be solid in this position.
Yep, the energy card is also potentially a nice find, just depending on what you're expecting to do this game. I think the strategy is pretty streamlined. Get that 1 Mirage Gate rolling, and then start to get your energy attachments onto the bench. If you find that second Mirage Gate, then of course it's going to be easy to have 2 of these Goodra V-Stars rolling, but ultimately, you play this just like a big theme deck. Takes the prize cards over and over again with a simple attaching and knocking out Pokemon.
We'll see another flower selecting, looking at 2 more cards. Really just trying to find Mirage Gate as the only card missing to get this knockout. There's another Colress for the following turn. And this play isn't over. Playing the escape room, and now Andrew has to decide, is this a bluff from Samuel? Does he have the energy card and the Mirage Gate, or is just Cramorant going to come up and attack? And it seems like Andrew is just going to promote Regigigas, and I think this does bust of both worlds, because this is the beefiest Regi Pokemon in this deck.
And Sammy's got a decision to make. Looks like we're just going to chat with the judge real quick before we get to the decision of the rest of this escape rope here.
And maybe an extra flower selecting was used. I think that's just the discussion at this point. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of how many are used. So.
Just going to go over the flower selectings that have occurred this game. See, this Sammy has been just tilting the Pokemon to represent the flower selectings that were used.
So hopefully we'll get this all settled and figured out in this position. So everyone's just making sure we're on the same page, and this is what happens when we have a Pokemon like Comfey. It reminds of like when Jirachi was legal in Standard and Stellar Wish and Scoop Up Net were legal at the same time, how you just turn one spam, Stellar Wish, Stellar Wish, Stellar Wish, and search through the deck. As long as everybody's on the same page, we're going to be okay with this situation. So we saw the Colress lost zone 2, and there were 2 in there. So as long as one more Comfey was used, the only thing here is that Marnie was lost zoned, I believe, the turn before. It just gets, it's so hard to follow this engine because I'm not sure, but it looks like something, a flower selecting was used incorrectly.
Probably
here.
The most recent flower selecting, so they're just going to try to revert the game state here. And we're going to go back to where the escape rope is played. So fair enough here. Good call by the judge catching that. And looks like not too much damage overall.
It's hard to track. This is how the game works, though. It's a little difficult at times. But what matters most is that these judges are going to catch what's happening. And we're going to resume to play. We'll make sure we inform you of any necessary penalties that are applied. We are in a pretty high-stakes game right now. Nerves are definitely a big factor. We talked about that. These are the matches that make or break. You've worked so hard this tournament. You're so close to being able to take home potentially a top 8 placement, something better, maybe looking for a win. But it looks like that will be what it is. A 2 prize card penalty. I mean, of course it sounds silly to say, but is it even enough to swing this matchup? That's my question.
And that does not mean that Drew draws 2 prize cards, because then he'd fight a Regice probably and feel really good. No, he just has to take 4 prize cards to close out the game now instead. So still going to be an uphill climb, but maybe not as steep.
And we will still see Escape Rope get played, and the same situation will happen again. Regigigas going into the active spot, and we will see yet another Comfey be put here. So Samuel is not utilizing the opportunity at all. Ooh, it's so tough again. Finds another temple, the last one remaining in deck. But you have to get rid of it at this point. You need to play Mirage Gate, and that is exactly what is found. Mirage Gate can power up this Hisuian Gutra on the bench, and while you're not attacking with it this turn, you're getting it ready to start utilizing Rolling Iron over and over again.
Is there another switching effect here, or potentially another scoop up net?
I'm not sure. I don't think I saw it quite in the hand. If there was that extra flower selecting, there was another escape rope, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. All of them have pretty much been used at this point. So what is the choice? Yeah, just a few supporter cards, big Parasol in the hand as well. That is a big card. Explain really why that card is important in this matchup.
Yeah, the Parasol's a nice find because, of course, you can play that onto your big Hisuian Gudra V-Star and maybe limit some of the awkwardness that your opponent has. You can avoid some of the additional effects that these Regi Pokemon have in terms of their attacks here. And it would help out with the Regice, but we're not actually going to be seeing that this game unless Drew starts to turn around the tides.
Unfortunately, Regice is missing. Blizzard Bind prevents V Pokemon from attacking the following turn, so that's exactly why the big Parasol is in the deck, is to because if the Gudra can't attack, then it can't use Rolling Iron. If it can't use Rolling Iron, so it becomes this little conundrum of what do you find. And an excellent research there from Andrew, discarding those Aurora Energy, but again, it's great to discard those energies and get going, but if you don't have Hisuian Heavy Ball, doesn't matter. Big Trekking Shoes. Do we see the Hisuian Heavy Ball? It's not Hisuian Heavy Ball. Get rid of it. Is it there? No, still no Hisuian Heavy Ball. Andrew Kenneth cursed by the stream, not able to have his Regi Pokemon in his deck. It was the Registeel a few months ago, and now it's Regice in this game number 1.
Yeah, and you think about which card would be pretty impactful, and sure enough, it happens to be the one that's in the prizes.
Nice top deck there. Finds Colress's Experiment. That can look through even more cards. Even though you just had a 2 prize penalty against you, if your opponent can't attack, doesn't matter if they take 2 less prize cards. They're not taking any at all. Last time my math checked out.
We'll see. I mean, you have to expect that Samuel's going to be able to get an attack off this time around. It has been a slow setup, very awkward, losing all of those Temple of Sinnoh. But Hisuian Gudra V-Star is fully charged up here. And once again, another decision to make. Boss's Orders could be a nice card if you see your opponent finally charging up manually on the bench one of these Pokemon. But energy cards are going to be a good find too.
This is the choice here. Going to opt to get rid of Boss's Orders. Now, the thing that is unfortunate about getting rid of the 2 Temple of Sinnoh is that Path to Peak will prevent this Hisuian Gudra from healing its damage off, which will come into handy later. I mean, it's not like the Regi Pokemon aren't doing anything. If you utilize Giant Fangs on Regidrago, you're still hitting for 80 damage. It's just a lot less than you want to be doing in this matchup.
Looks like the target is going to be that Regirock here. Going to take the knockout. We'll see if the prize cards can help out. The Temple of Sinnoh still hanging out in there for Samuel for later on, but you have to think that there's not much pressure here.
Now, if you're Drew, do you even just consider, I mean, of course you take 2 less prizes this game, but do you even consider, just because of your prizes being so terrible, going to the next game? Maybe after this turn, because we're already 15 minutes through this round. A tie eliminates your chances, essentially, from guaranteed top cut. You've got to have that in the back of your mind. I mean, playing the Marnie, but again, it just comes down to, can you find Hisuian Heavy Ball? If it eludes you from your deck and you can't play the game for the next couple of turns, doesn't even matter if you find it for the next 3 turns.
Yeah, needs to find basically the perfect cards here, and almost does find that. Has the Ordinary Rod because of the double Regirock into the discard pile, but you don't see the Hisuian Heavy Ball to go along with this, and that is obviously going to be the big piece here. Dragon's Horde maybe could help out too, so we'll see if some thinning can happen in the hand.
I saw the yellow and orange of Choice Belt and thought that was the Hisuian Heavy Ball, and I was like, he found it, he had it, but nope, it was just a mistake, not the right card. Does find the Quick Ball, and on Samuel's side, I think understands, okay, Regice is not in here. My opponent has played enough searching cards at this point to do this, but Drew has done a really good job of playing things like Ordinary Rod to maybe try and make it less obvious. I don't know if there's been a chance for Andrew to play like 2 searching cards and bail it out at this point, so maybe Samuel's understanding, maybe something's not right, but for now, I'm more than happy to sit here, use Rolling Iron, take prize cards. 3 more cards here. Do we see the Hisuian Heavy Ball? Whoa! And there it is, found it!
Oh,
finally.
Wow, and just thrown down immediately there. Andrew, definitely happy to see that. And we'll have to see if the energies now are in the discard pile. I did see at least 1 Aurora Energy and 1 colorless typing of the energies. We'll have to see if other ones were in there too. If this Regidrago could start attacking, that'd be phenomenal.
There is enough energy in the discard pile. 3 Aurora Energy have hit the discard pile over the course of this game. And there they are, putting 2 Aurora on, as well as the Gift Energy to draw more cards. And just like that, I think that was the turn, right? Andrew needs to find these essentially energy cards to, or rather, find this Regice to be able to deal some damage. 110. And now, one of the downsides about this deck is you have a great attacker in Hisuian Gudra. But the problem is, when you stick it up to attack, your deck is not doing anything. You're just sitting there, and you're attacking with Hisuian Gudra because this is a 3 retreat Pokemon that just has to sit here and attack. It's not a bad situation, but your draw is definitely very limited.
Yeah, this is not a deck that plays Hyper Potion as well. It's basically all or nothing on the Moisture Star, and we see the Path to the Peak is locked in play here. 2 Temple of Sinnoh in the Lost Zone, 1 in the prize cards. Sammy's gonna continue to just try to sneak out some additional prize cards here and maybe find that Temple of Sinnoh, but we know that it's not gonna be this prize card.
Not quite. And it makes me wonder, too, the boss's orders on Registeel. Of course, Drew is known to play 1 Registeel, so there is that potential. But after your opponent slammed down Hisuian Heavy Ball and grabbed Regice, wouldn't you just maybe go and target that Pokemon after it's very clear at this point there's only 1 of them in the deck?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. The problem, regardless, looks to be that the fact that the Regidrago is going to stick around with these energy cards on and continue to deal tons of damage. But the Ordinary Rod would have been a big find there for this last Pokemon. It looks like Andrew doesn't actually have the access to that Registeel just yet.
So the question here, what attack is the best to use? Of course, we talked about Big Parasol a little bit, and it's not on this Hisuian Gudra, which means Blizzard Bind, while only dealing 20 damage, could prevent the reduction of the 80 the following turn, or any prizes being taken. But it looks like the Serena is instead going to target the Hisuian Gudra, and this is a good play from Drew because your opponent showed that they really don't have any way to pivot out. Otherwise, they would have utilized Flower Selecting last turn.
Oh, we do see another supporter added to the hand by way of that Dragon's Horde, so that will help out for some future turns and more potential digging here. But the Giant Fang's going to continue to deal a bunch of damage here onto this Hisuian Gudra now. And you can see the tide starting to turn a little bit. Drew really just going to target down these two V Pokemon to try to close things out because of that earlier misstep from Sammy.
Yeah, and looks like that find of the Regice allowing Andrew to pilot the deck as intended. And with the Hisuian Gudra going down and with the Temple also still being in the prize cards, and your opponent having a 2-prize penalty, it means that after this knockout onto the active, all Andrew needs to do is knock out 2 more Pokemon and the game will be over.
The hand is double energy, double rod, double scoop up net. You can't do anything.
Nothing at all. Andrew, extremely happy that was found. It feels so frustrating to just start the game out and not be able to find the piece that you're looking for. Exactly what your deck needs to function. You need to have all these Regi Pokemon in play. And now it feels like a whole 180-degree flip has occurred. I mean, putting the 2-prize penalty across, which it is relevant in this case, so I'm not going to downplay that. It definitely is a factor at this point. But Samuel was in full control, had Gudra set up, was attacking, used flower selecting, looked through plenty of pieces. And now it's on Andrew Kenneth. Still needs to find Registeel, though. Cannot utilize something like the the Ancient Wisdom ability right now, and does find Ultra Ball to get that into play. But as it stands, Giant Fangs is already being able to take the knockout, putting Andrew 2 prizes away from winning game number 1.
Yeah, could potentially load up some more energies from the discard pile. You mentioned there is one more Aurora energy for some reach here, but I'm not sure if that's absolutely necessary this time around. Just going to go ahead and take the knockout, take these 2 prize cards, and get one step closer to closing out game number 1, which looked insurmountable when we started here with 50 minutes.
It's all flipped around. Comfy will come up. Flower selecting will be the start. And a tough decision, too. You have to get rid of that Hisuian Gudra, but because your opponent has already had a 2-prize penalty, it is okay. But more importantly, finding the big Parasol means that this is going to be maybe a little bit easier, but it's ride or die here for Samuel on this Hisuian Gudra. Needs to just invest everything into this piece. Otherwise, there's no better Pokemon to do the job anyways.
Yeah, the time is closing, and we do see at least the Lost Vacuum added to the hand, so that could open up access for the Moisture Star. Gonna have to time that out pretty perfectly in order to get maximum use of this card.
Yeah, that's a big find, because without the stadiums, there is no way to bump Path to Peak, but this card does it. It, of course, isn't as beneficial as finding something like the Temple of Sinnoh, because you're limiting your opponent to pretty much only be able to attack with Regigigas, and even then you need manual attachments and energy already on, and things get a little bit more tricky. So we'll see Scoop Up Net bring this to the active. What else are you really looking for here if you're Samuel? I guess maybe more cards to get the turn off, but you're invested in this Gudra, you're in the Goo Gang, you're ready to just let this thing try to take you all the way home.
Yeah, we do see the switch card in hand, so that's going to be helpful if you ever get into an awkward position with that Regice. We also talked about that big Parasol, so that should be able to help out in any awkward situations. And already considering the Lost Vacuum play here, might be cashing in on the Moisture Star early.
Yeah, but usually here you can probably take 1 extra hit.
That's what I was thinking.
The idea. What is the purpose to get rid? I guess the concern is that if your opponent has already discarded a lot of Path to Peak, or if you don't draw into the stadium and you get Marnied, that could be a big deal. So maybe trying to actively play around the opponent Marnieing. Drew does have a extremely large hand size, but no, using the Moisture Star right now to get rid of this stadium. We're going to see if it was too early or not, but I mean, Samuel's here at 9-2-2 at the deck, so he's the one calling the shots. Going down to 3 prize cards, is now fully healed, draws the Battle VIP pass instead of the Temple of Sinnoh. And what can Andrew do? Again, 3-turn difference. So the game is, coming down to this Hisuian Gudra, but it feels more so that maybe Samuel's game plan is set, and it comes down to what attacks can Andrew maybe use to try and apply here.
Right, and you're probably going to have to do that through knocking out the Hisuian Gudra V-Star. The damage isn't lined up very well for Terra Spark knockouts to steal 2 remaining prizes. Maybe if you saw double Comfy on the bench and have seen some Scoop Up Nets used, you'd feel a little safer going that route, but I'm not sure if that's exactly going to be the way to get it done.
So let's do some math here, right? we got to calculate how much damage this Reggie deck can do. So a Regidrago can do 190 damage. That's the most against this Dragon-type Pokemon. But that's reduced by 80, so that's 70 damage. So if you multiply that by 4, it will take 4 turns to knock out this Hisuian Goodra. You can't really cheese it out with Blizzard Bind because it has the Pig Parasol. So maybe it was just worth it to guarantee the heal off because the math is there.
Yeah, that might line up pretty strong here. Don't know if there's actually an answer then for Drew. I guess the quickest way to victory would be to continue to Terra Spark, and then 3 times you could knock out the Pokemon on the bench, but any Scoop Up Net would disrupt that.
So I did my math wrong. It's 190 minus 80, so it's 110 damage. So still 3 turns to knock out at that point. So minus 80 from the Rolling Iron. But again, the Choice Belt's not on this Regidrago. Regigigas hits 180, so still 100. So 3 turns to take this knockout. May have to find a way. It may have costed him to use that V-Star power a little bit too early. But these next couple of turns, Andrew still needs to find the Pokemon every turn to bring back. It seems very simple, but it can be difficult. But Ordinary Rod is the card you're looking for to make sure these Regi Pokemon are still in the deck so they can be put back into play to power up Ancient Wisdom.
Yeah, and there is only one more belt available. We saw one already go down on the Drago earlier on, so if the Regigigas is knocked out, maybe that would disrupt the math a little bit as well.
So Ordinary Rod will put those back into the deck. Ultra Ball and Quick Ball are both search options to potentially get into that Pokemon. There is also the option to utilize Terra Spark to try and go after some of these bench Pokemon. Samuel smartly picking up the Comfey understands that that could potentially be a liability later on in the game. And going to utilize this speed energy draw to... What are you looking for this position? Wow,
Ooh.
finds the one of Lost Vacuum. That is a card maybe Samuel wasn't expecting to play against that can remove the Big Parasol. And from there, Regice is now a theoretically viable option into this Hisuian Goodra.
Yeah, it's 2 Big Parasol in the list, but I haven't been tracking the other one here, so not sure if that's going to be available for Sammy. And that could definitely be a disruptive card.
So what's the choice here of attackers? The speed energy already on this Regieleki. I don't think there's some sort of a scoop up net available, so it will just be the Terra Spark. But this is doing minimal damage to the Hisuian Goodra. I'm not sure how many scoop up nets are down at this point, and this could also be a way play around the Hisuian Goodra, damage these bench Comfey and Cramorant, and try and play the game around that way. I'm not sure scoop up nets are still available. I have to check the counts. If it's not, then it's pretty much just a Terra Spark game at this point.
Yep.
Can Andrew utilize Terra Spark 3 times in a row? Otherwise, Sammy's just going to be able to deal enough damage and heal out, or rather reduce the damage enough so that he can win the game.
There are 0 Scoop Up Net in hand, at least, so we can go with that information. Not going to have access to that this turn unless the supporter card changes things, and I don't even think we see a supporter card here, so it's going to be switch into the Comfey to continue to look a little more with Flower selecting.
Getting rid of the Drapion, finding Mirage Gate as the choice. Does have access to Radiant Greninja. I feel like at this point, it's probably worth the draw to just bench Radiant Greninja. Oh, of course, Path to the Peak is in place, so that would not be an option. If Samuel had access to that Stadium card, that could potentially be there. So now you're on a 2-turn clock. Again, you're not going to lose the game next turn. You will lose a prize card to the Comfey, but you're at least dealing damage with this Hisuian Goodra. It is online. It is available to attack. It just comes down to how does Andrew want to play into this Hisuian Goodra? Is it the continuous attack with Terra Spark? What resources is Samuel down? Does it make the most sense? Or is it an attack with something like the Regice in combination with the Lost Vacuum in hand?
Yeah, I mean, you just saw your opponent use a switching effect too, but the strategy seemed pretty strong. You didn't see any Pokemon scooped up here. You're going to have access to a prize card, so at least promote the Regice and give yourself an opportunity to make a decision here.
And Samuel finally finding the Temple of Sinnoh can bump this Path to the Peak, maybe open some options up for the end of this game. But again, you played that switching card, which really did nothing for you. Of course, you looked at the deck a little bit more, but that was pretty much it. So we'll see what the choice is for Andrew. Quick Ball can grab this Regi Pokemon, and oh, there are 3 cards left in this deck. Oh boy.
Yeah, that definitely limits the turns here. Maybe there's not enough time for the Regice. We haven't even seen the Big Parasol removed yet, so that is going to be an issue here. as well. But we know the Lost Vacuum still is in the hand, but maybe you hold on to that for the Stadium War. We did see some Path to the Peak in hand too, so just need to make sure that you use every resource appropriately here when there are so few cards left.
Yeah, and Samuel does have a big hand size too, so it could make sense to play something like the Marnie to disrupt, but yeah, Samuel also hasn't done anything so far, so it's this sort of double-edged sword of, is my opponent just holding on to scoop up net for the proper moment? Would they have played it at this point? But it looks like we're going to be drawing through our deck. The last card is scoop up net. I think that's what Andrew is looking for to try and go for this Terra Sparking strategy. May have to now rely on using Blizzard Bind.
And that doesn't line up very well with the amount of cards in hand. There's a Marnie, I guess, so that could help out a little bit. But maybe that would be what Samuel needs to draw into some of these switching effects.
Yeah, but even buying the extra turn with Blizzard Bind, you're doing 20 damage essentially.
Right.
And of course, you open up next turn, but this Hisuian Gudra is not being threatened by a knockout as it is. I'll have to see how important that would be if it sticks away. Does have the Lost Vacuum. Have to also watch this. And the thing that also is so bad about Lost Vacuum is you're also thinning a card out of your hand. How does the card sizes work? I actually think if Marnie is played, Andrew might just lose the game. This game, I think, is actually potentially just over because you Blizzard Bind for 20 damage because Rolling Iron was used last turn. It's just 20. Yeah. So 100 damage minus the 80. It's 20 damage. So this has 60 on it. And now Samuel starts to turn. There's also, yeah, it just wouldn't work because the counter Stadium is there too and finds Colress off the top. If there's a switch and a way to retreat this, I don't know if Andrew can deal enough damage to these Pokemon in play to win this game, especially with one card in deck.
Yep, there's just not enough cards, it looks like. There's the there's the other Regieleki, but it's not. I don't think that's gonna be able to get you the resources you need in this amount of time.
So there is one switch. I think Samuel also has to play around the deck out situation as well, because you did top deck Colress, so you have 5 cards to look at with Colress Experiment. The Cramorant is going to receive the energy, which is smart because usually I think, or well, actually, initially I was like, okay, maybe you'll have like some sort of play, but what is the real reason for putting the Metal Energy on the Cramorant in response to, or rather, instead of putting it on the Comfey?
Well, maybe he's expecting Comfey to be knocked out next turn, and there will be an additional turn somehow from Andrew. Maybe there's one last Ordinary Rod that wasn't accounted for, that was maybe in the prizes or something like that, that Sammy's working around here.
Do we see the switch? No, does not find switch. Does have big Parasol, and that will prevent future Regice from possibly going to play. But all that Samuel needs to do in this case is just pass the turnover, essentially, and there's nothing that Drew can do. Unless Samuel finds a way to like deck out instead, then, I mean, things are over too. I mean, you play the Temple down too, it means that Drew is forced to also find a way to remove this, and that is a big card. Getting rid of the Path to the Peak, making it so that all special energy in play only provide colorless energy. I mean, if you're Drew, your opponent's just playing turns out and you have no way to win, unless I'm missing something again. We've seen players come up with really weird ways to win games, but...
That's every card?
I mean, that's every card here, but
There's an Ordinary Rod.
Oh, there's a switch. So finds a switch, and then Ordinary Rod is also there. I don't think that Sammy would go for this play and just pass the turnover. So we will see 2 Pokemon get put back in, as well as 2 basic energy cards. Just going to put the 3 cards back in, more than enough to finish this game out. And if you're Drew Kenneth, like, what are you stuck doing? You're going to see the Rolling Iron take the knockout, going to 1 prize, the big Parasol there as well, and the doors are shutting. There's no way to put extra damage in play. Going to play it out till the end, it looks like, though. And that's it. Just going to concede. Wow, Samuel takes game number 1. That was all over the place. Samuel was in control to start the game out, and then the double prize penalty in combination with finding Hisuian Heavy Ball meant that Drew Kenneth was in the driver's seat if he hit everything he was needed. And then the end of the game came. The draws weren't there for Andrew Kenneth. And Sammy Sosa takes game number 1.
You can see the relief on Sammy's face. What a back and forth game. Of course, the big mistake there, giving up the double prize penalty, and that almost opened up the window there for Drew to come out and sneak that victory in. All the cards were lining up pretty well, and then it just comes down to the speed lightning energy not finding the right card at the right time. If we saw that scoop up net, I think we might have had a different winner.
And the problem is, there is not a lot of time remaining in this matchup. This is a slow and grindy match. Both players want to do their own thing, but really Samuel is the tempo setter in this case, right? Because you are attacking with a Pokemon that reduces damage every turn against a deck that is used to hitting mild numbers, right? 160 to 200 damage with weakness or things in that range is what you're looking for, but it's hard when your opponent is essentially thwarting your entire game plan.
Yep, and the math is pretty easy to predict over from your opponent. You're not worried about weakness. You can see the Moisture Star potentially lining up here, and that just buys so many turns. And with the speed of these decks and the single prize exchanges that you see, at least early on in the game, you have to think that this could go the distance in game number 2.
Surprise cards for Andrew are a lot more forgiving in this game. Has a few Reggie Pokemon prize, but there are luckily multiple copies of those Pokemon in the deck. We saw that Samuel's prizes weren't too bad last game, but there could definitely be some dire scenarios where cards are prized that don't allow him to function the deck as intended.
Yeah, I mean, we saw even just making difficult decisions with the Temple of Sinnoh almost costed the game, and it definitely led to this being a lot closer of a matchup. So we'll see if that or the prize cards has any impact here.
Big Parasol in the prizes, definitely a big deal. One of the 3 Hisuian Gudra V-Star in the prizes. And Andrew Kenneth understands the time situation. Getting down to it right away. 3 Reggie Pokemon in play. Discarding Speed, Lightning Energy, and Dragon's Horde. Trying to just dig the deck as much as possible. Has supporters for next turn. So all you can do on turn 1. The heat is on.
Oh, Sammy's hand is the worst. It is the worst thing I've seen in a long time. He's got 2 Metal Energies, a Stadium, the Mirage, and double switch. No way to even draw a card.
Does have Temple of Sinnoh, going to play that in a last-ditch effort. What do you find here if you're Drew Kenneth getting rid of Choice Spell? Understands, if I get my Reggie Pokemon in play, if I start putting aggression on now, that is what I need. Marnie, not the supporter you're going to be wanting to play in this situation as Ultra Ball looks at the deck. And that would be, you know your opponent has nothing in hand. They would have played Colress their first turn if they did, as Regirock gets grabbed out of the deck. Still needs to find a few pieces. Of course, Regidrago right now unable to attack because of that Temple of Sinnoh in play, but Drew is playing multiple copies of the Path to the Peak, 3 copies. More than enough. However, you got to find those copies, and research is your best way to do that.
Yep, Lost Vacuum would also be an out here, and we do see at least 1 additional energy added, but it's not an Aurora energy, so even if all the cards lined up, it would not lead to a Regidrago knockout this turn.
Hisuian Heavy Ball will look at the prize cards. Does find Regieleki, which is the last Reggie Pokemon needed. Dragon's Horde has not been utilized this turn, so there is still a potential situation where something like a Scoop Up Net gets grabbed, or another potential option. Also, the fact that the Regieleki that can hit the bench with a targeted bolt attack could be relevant here, right? You don't really want to target this Cramorant. The only thing you're scared of is something like the bench Hisuian Gudra.
Yeah, you could get some relevant damage down, maybe get the Moisture Star going a little earlier than your opponent intended, and then the math starts to line up a little easier. You can definitely predict when that Pokemon would fall. Does have the Path to the Peak, so that's going to mean that the Temple of Sinnoh no longer in effect here, and we will see these special energies put to use.
So thinning the hand out, Quick Ball can discard the Regidrago. Ordinary Rod to put 2 back into the deck. So in right now, it is essentially a like -1, so you draw 1 more card, but you're technically putting 2 cards back into the deck that you don't want to draw. So a little bit of complex math when it comes to drawing stuff you want, drawing stuff you don't want. But here we go, big 3 cards.
Discard effect. Is there an Aurora? No.
Finds the Scoop Up Net. That's it.
That's
the
big,
Speed,
though.
Lightning Energy already in the discard pile means this Regieleki can attack with Targeted Bolt to target the bench Gudra V and deal 130 damage, putting it in range for a 2-hit knockout.
Yep, that's going to go ahead and deal 120 onto that bench Pokemon. Yeah. And that's definitely a scary sight here. Is that a Scoop Up Net added to the hand? Oh, no.
Yeah, if you can't win this game,
Scoop!
That's it.
Wow.
Andrew Kenneth may be able to pull a tie out of this match, but I think both players understand the situation. They need to play this game out. They need to find a win. We're going to game number 3. We've got 15 minutes left in this round. And with how wild this series has been so far, I mean, it's cliche to say, but it's anyone's game.
Yeah, I absolutely respect the decision here from Samuel. Understands that, yeah, you could have played that game out a little more, maybe bought some time and got this game closer, but what's the point? You're trying to win right now. Both players need a match victory here in order to have an opportunity for a win and in to top 8, so I love this decision. Gonna have 14 minutes on the clock. Hopefully both these players are ready to give it their all, and we'll see what we have left here in round number 14.
It's a big match for both of these players. 14 minutes left, still plenty of time to play Pokemon. Of course, clock is a big factor, and a tie would knock both players essentially out of day 2 contention. I haven't ran the math yet. I'm sure somebody out there has with how the standings are looking. Not looking safe for players at 10, 2, and 3. These opening hands are going to be big again. Yeah, Samuel had a battle pass in that opening hand, but no basic Pokemon. One of the prize cards here for Andrew, not detrimental, can still play the game out. Having Aurora Energy, the prize card, is not something you usually want to see because you want to find that card as early as possible, but it's not game losing, and compared to Game 1's prizes, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, we will take it at this stage, and it's at the bottom as well, too, so certainly could see some prizes drawn with the other energies, and then you find that one and add it into the mix here. Really just depends now on Samuel getting an opening Pokemon here. We need to avoid these mulligans and start playing some Pokemon.
Get right into the action. Samuel will most likely be starting things off going first, which is a big advantage. See what the hand looks like, what cards are available. Yet another mulligan, more time wasted and more cards to Drew's hand. We've talked about it a little bit, but the fabled turn 1 Regigigas, it's a lot more possible to get the full combo out, get everybody to the party, get everybody in play, and attack with some of these powerful attackers to take knockouts and start putting pressure on Samuel's board.
Getting a sneak preview of the hand here. Definitely some pieces could be added to help out Drew Kenneth here, but does have double Aurora energy. So yeah, maybe some fireworks could be lined up. Just depends on how many cards Sammy is willing to give here as we look at the third hand here drawn. Oh no.
More time wasted off the clock. More time unable to play Pokemon, and more cards given to Drew. Not what you want to see at all in this position. It's the worst feeling too if you take like 4 mulligan cards and you give your opponent 4 mulligans. You're like, all right, finally I can find a basic, and you draw your hand and it's just terrible.
Yes,
it's just not a situation
Gudra and
you
a
want.
bunch of sad extra cards that could have helped out.
So hopefully,
turn 7.
Exactly. So hopefully we'll have an exciting game number 3 between both of these players. Lots on the line, lots to talk about. You know, Andrew Kenneth, we've been following a lot this season, is a pretty breakout player. Performed well right as we kicked the season off in Salt Lake last year, and seems to have taken all that momentum in every tournament after tournament. Has had some rough starts here and there at some tournaments, but overall has been performing extremely well.
Yeah, was already established pre-COVID, and then afterwards just was looking for an opportunity to travel to all these events and start to perform. And look at this double Mirage Gate down. That is going to be awkward to opening up your first big attacker of the game.
So let's see the starting turn. Flower selecting a great way to kick things off. Has some choices to make. What does his hand look like? Wow, not much in this hand. No battle VIP pass. Puts the ordinary rod away.
And there's not even another Pokemon to switch to.
There's nothing happening in this hand.
How does this keep happening?
Well, when you're playing a bunch of these different stage 1 Pokemon, you have to sacrifice these consistency cards. How many Regi Pokemon are in the hand?
1, 2, quick ball, 3.
So it looks like there's a Serena as well, so that can discard some more cards. If there's any attacker you want to use turn 1, it's this Regieleki on turn 1 anyways.
Yes, lines up very well. It's the exact same strategy that we saw last time. Targeted Bolt could start to put in some work here on the Gudra V that's hanging out on the bench. Is there potential switching effect? There's a scoop up net if the Drago wanted to start to get active and continue to draw with the Dragon's Horde, and certainly the energies would be available with the double Aurora.
Potential thinning going on in the hand, as you said, can utilize scoop up net to just take knockouts in the Comfey. And it's 2 different lines of play, right? Because you can go after the Hisuian Gudra, deal damage, but you could also, just knock out the Comfey.
Yep, this is the card I'm worried about. I don't want you to draw any more cards, Sammy. I will beat up a Gudra just fine if you don't have any other ways to help out. See what the cards are here. A little more help as one more Regi is found. That Steel Trekking Shoe's going to try to help out. Find the rock.
Choosing to
Ultra
keep it.
Ball.
So just 1 piece short.
That's all of them.
That's all of them, except 1 energy is missing at this point. So found almost everything that was needed. Has already, hasn't used Dragon's Horde yet though, right? Oh wow, still has access. Use Serena to draw those cards. So these are going to be a big 4 cards and so many options. Any energy card will do. 2 Aurora, already discard pile. This is what we're talking about. The fabled turn 1 Regigigas. Every single Regi Pokemon is here. Regirock, Regice, Registeel, Regieleki, Regidrago, and Regigigas. Choice belt on the Regigigas, and here we go. Big 4 cards. Wherever it goes,
biggest 4.
It still doesn't matter. This is essentially a huge turn for Andrew.
Just
do we
needs to
see
find
an energy card? Found it, found the speed, lightning energy. That means Regigiga's Ancient Wisdom can take both of these Aurora energies, attach them to Regidrago. Andrew Kenneth has high rolled an incredible first start in this game, finding the turn 1 Regidrago attack. 160 damage, taking the first prize card. And what can Samuel do to respond in this situation?
Insult to injury, the next card is the Comfy that would have been switched into. Instead, now using this switching effect to the Comfy to start drawing with the flower selecting. Little bit awkward here. We do see the Marnie is in hand, but you need to get rolling here. We need to see the Chorus's Experiment, multiple cards into the Lost Zone, and maybe get the one of those 2 remaining Mirage Gates going.
Yeah, there was the choice to play down the Temple of Sinnoh, but I think maybe just deciding at this point, there's good odds that my opponent finds what they're looking for anyways. Let's make sure 5 cards are drawn off of the Marnie. Don't use flower selecting. Let's 5 cards. Okay. Well, that's an issue, so we'll hopefully get that stopped. There should be 5 cards for Samuel off the Marnie, and that is so heartbreaking to make another gameplay error. Oh, you hate to see it.
Yep, of course,
so
trying to play with speed here to get the ball rolling. And now we're going to have to review and see which was the card drawn. It was all played super quickly, but of course, should be able to resolve that. But that's probably another prize penalty that we'll have to see the judges assign here.
It may even be escalated to a quad prize penalty already because of how it had occurred before. But judges will decide. But just when we're getting into the heat of game number 3, of course, a big match for both players. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of pressure. Things like this happen, but regardless of whoever you're rooting for in this match, you want to see a great game 3. You want to see both these competitors shine, show us what they've got, and it's just unfortunate to see things like this happen.
Oh, we'll see what the judge comes up with here. Gonna see the extra card here now that would have been a part of the flower selecting, I would believe.
Yeah.
Don't know why it's being shuffled around, but anyways, we'll see if we have an answer here for what happened.
So we'll let you know if there's any penalties of any sort and kind. Only 2 cards in the Lost Zone. Attachment onto the Gudra. His action is back on Andrew. Already has the knockout lined up. Can even go for this line. And now it's targeted bolt time. Going into the Regieleki. Has access to targeted bolt to target down the bench to Gudra V. Also throwing on the gift energy. Does force you to discard all energies attached to it as well. But here we go. We're playing the timer game again. 2-turn timer on Samuel. Do you have a way to evolve this Pokemon up? Do you have a way to heal this? If you're not using Rolling Iron, I'm more than happy to just continuously hit you for full damage.
Yeah, this is a great pressure play here. Of course, the clock is going to be a dangerous weapon. As we see that Sammy does have that Chorus's Experiment now, going to be able to get some additional cards into the Lost Zone, and does have access to a second Comfy, so even more cards can be found by way of the flower selecting. Chained together, we do see the switch and the scoop up net in the hand as well, too, so this could be a big turn.
And this is one of the downsides to not playing Manaphy in your deck. But leave yourself open to plays like this, where your Pokemon can get targeted on the bench. It's easy for your opponent to deal damage. We're up to 5 cards in the Lost Zone, but there still needs to be more. This will be up to 6. He needs a big turn here to find things like the Mirage Gate, like more ways to pivot out. The switching cards exist. They're in the hand, but these are big flower selectings. Is there a Mirage Gate? No. There's another Comfy, though, and that could allow more dig potentially off of these flower selectings.
Yeah, there's another switch, and then, of course, you have your retreat for the turn that you could incorporate with an energy card. So as long as you find the Mirage Gate, one of the 2, then you should be able to get a Gudra V-Star attack off this turn.
Scoop Up Net picking up Comfy. Big time draws off these flower selectings.
Needs we're to already at 6. This is easy.
Yeah. They're already at 6. Finds another Gudra V. That's good to put down. Can still play Switch as well to bring up the second Comfy. Up to 7 cards tune. Evolving into this Hisuian Gudra. Playing around the potential to take a knockout onto this with targeted bolt. Which means at worst, if there's not a way to boss this up, you buy yourself one more turn in combination with Moisture Star. Second flower selecting being utilized. Is there a Mirage Gate? No, it looks like still no.
We're so close to seeing a magical turn right back in response for Samuel. And, of course, does have another switching effect.
I think the question here is, do you play the escape rope or do you manually retreat this Pokemon? If you're going to find Mirage Gate, you're going to have the energies necessary to do what you need to do. And this is also awkward for Drew because you have to pick a Pokemon to put in the active that you can either A, get out, or B, attack with next turn. And I mean, Regice is one of those Pokemon. Like, you can deal enough damage to knock out Comfey, but it's not the Pokemon you want to be using right away. Another Flower Selecting being used. And yet again, still unable to find Mirage Gate, and that's what happens when you only play, I mean, you play 4 copies of it, but half of them are unavailable in your deck.
Yeah, if there's a decision to be made, then it's not good, because if you see the Mirage Gate, we're throwing that down immediately.
Capture Energy can at least grab one more card out of the deck. If the 4th Comfey is there, it can grab that to utilize Flower Selecting. Radiant Greninja, also a potential option. Soon we'll see that get grabbed down. I mean, Cramorant is not a great Pokemon in this matchup, and really, why is Cramorant? We're not seeing Cramorant attack, but what is really the reason for that in this situation?
Yeah, it just doesn't line up well with the numbers. You're not able to take advantage of a big knockout at any stage. You're dealing 110 damage. All these Pokemon have at least 120, mainly 130 as the big number. And this deck doesn't clean up as cleanly as other Lost Zone decks do. They have got that Galarian Zigzagoon occasionally, and of course that Sableye to start to clean up all of these Regi Pokemon.
So the big question here for Samuel is, what do you retreat into? Do you leave this active? Do you continue to play? But there's actually big 2 cards here. Who does not find Mirage Gate, still really looking for that card and unable to get it. If that card was there, the Comfey could have retreated, moved into the Hisuian Gudra, Rolling Iron would begin, and all of a sudden, things would have turned around for Samuel, but because the turn is over, what do? Do you just pass with the Comfey in the active? You've got no way next turn to pivot. The hand has nothing going on for it. There's a couple Battle Pass, energy cards. I mean, Parasol is great, but not when you're not attacking. What do you do in this position?
Yeah, and there's not enough time on the clock, really, to probably see a winner at this stage, too. We're just running into a situation where both players got enough of a setup to where it's going to have to be a lot of back and forth of really quickly. We'll see if Drew has the read on the situation and just starts to go aggressive here. Maybe there's also a situation where if you get the other Regieleki into play, you can start working in some damage onto these Comfeys and steal additional prizes.
And that is a big Marnie because it's actually going to help Samuel out. There was nothing going on in his hand, just a few Battle Pass and no playable cards. For Drew, has the guaranteed knockout lined up because there are 2 Aurora Energy in the discard pile, so the Regice can deal enough damage to take this knockout. And if you're Drew, your mind is just going, if I want to win this game, I need to just start attacking. Go, go, go. Doesn't matter if I'm not doing anything fancy or sequencing correctly. I just need to start taking knockouts and taking attacks. Yep,
Drew is definitely trying to win another regional championship and has to move quickly if that's going to be the case. 2 minutes on the clock here. Need to see some prize cards taken quickly. And it looks like Regice is going to at least do a little bit of work here, add an additional prize into the hand.
Blizzard Bind, 100 damage, taking the knockout. Big draw, finds Colress off the top. There's already enough cards in the Lost Zone for Mirage Gate, but we know that the Mirage Gate are not on the bottom of the deck, so these are 5 cards, 2 Mirage Gates still in deck. Do we finally see it? And we do! Wow. 2 Battle Pass to throw away, has Mirage Gate now. Moisture Star can't be used right away, but the Temple of Sinnoh is also in hand. That could potentially heal this Hisuian Gudra V-Star up. And from there, even though it seems so terrible for Samuel in these opening turns, it could be turned around. But despite all of that, we've got 1.5 minutes left in this round.
That's right. The perfect setup finally shows itself here for Samuel. He's not going to have enough time to do anything with it. It seems to be the way it goes sometimes here on the big stage. And that is just going to be an attachment now onto the Hisuian Gudra V-Star. Mirage Gate going to add the additional energies too. And that's going to be Rolling Iron.
Yep, so can grab the water energy. Oh, let's just make sure the second water cannot be attached. It has to be 2 different energy types utilizing Mirage Gate. So let's make sure that that water on the bench to Hisuian Gudra V gets put back. It is one of the caveats to playing Mirage Gate, so let's make sure that happens before the turn gets end. It has to be 2 different types of basic energy. So let's make sure that that is all taken care of.
Just the water, just 1 water.
So yeah, water on the Hisuian V-Star and on the V. So.
Yeah, you're right. I was looking at the energy and wondering if it was just a shiny metal.
So I know for this one my eyes aren't mistaking me though, because both of those waters got on in play. So Can you vouch for me here?
Yes, no, it's definitely what I see as well. I think they're just trying to understand what's going on with it.
So the attachment went down for turn here. Water. Okay, so we're all good. We're taking care of this. We've already had a lot happening. There's a lot of nerves here. Listen, it's sort of like a domino effect, right? You start the game out, you make a mistake, and then you get so nervous, and these players are coming to the end. So hopefully, time has been reached at the end on our stream, but hopefully, maybe we'll have some time extensions. We did have a few judge calls happen too, so maybe we weren't taking that into account. I didn't really quite catch if the clock catched up to where we're at. But hey, as we've seen in Pokemon, every minute matters, every second counts.
Yeah, we'll see if there are any additional seconds added to the clock here. That would be very beneficial for Drew in this stage. Has taken 2 prize cards already. Sammy is going to add 1 more to his pile now, but still needs to remove 5 Reggies from play if he wants to earn 3 match points.
So time has not been called yet. 1 minute left in the round, but essentially Samuel will have to attack 3 times before the end of a minute to be able to win this match. And I guess Drew still has a shot. He could still deal some damage to some of these bench Pokemon, but with only a minute left, Drew's got to go and try and get this attack off. Draws 3 cards. So we're all good.
The Moisture Star was not used also. The path is back in play, so I think that also could be a pretty important factor here, as Drew would have to target down both of these V Pokemon in order to close things out here.
So Ordinary Rod will put the Regice back into the deck. But we got 10 seconds left, and unless these players start doing stuff very
it has to be targeted bolt onto the Goodra V on the bench, and Sammy draws his card in the next 3 seconds.
And passes the turnover as well. So looks like time will now be called. Neither player, I don't think, has the cards to win this game. Wow, if this played out, what a close match we've had despite everything that's happened. Of course, both players are going to play it out. We'll see where this board would have been at the end of this game. Marnie going to have Samuel draw 4 cards while Andrew fills the hand up to 5. Does find the Regice that was put back in with the Ordinary Rod. So that means Ancient Wisdom will be back online and allow Andrew to throw some energy onto whatever Pokemon on the bench they choose. Personally, in this position, what I would do is choose my favorite Reggie Pokemon and put the energy on there as a support to say thank you for being my deck. You're my favorite.
Well, which one would that be?
Listen, I'm a Regirock. I like the cry that Regirock makes, like the like the Regirock cry. So I'm a Regirock fan. But what about you, man? What do you got going?
You know, I've definitely had some interesting interactions with Registeel, so maybe we sneak that in a little bit.
I'm not sure the history of good Reggie Pokemon back in like the EX era, all the way back then, but I do know Reggie Move on the Regice, so that's what I've got. But enough about old talk here. We've got Mirage Gate getting played down. The Hisuian Goodra does get evolved, so seems like Samuel will be turn 1 of time, Andrew turn 2, and Samuel turn number 3. So as the board states right now, no conclusion, but even just as we come to the end of this series, there's a lot to take away, because what an intense 3 games. We got to see both of these decks at their high points and at their low points as well. Yeah,
I don't feel like either player exactly got to orchestrate their game plan. It was a lot of back and forth and just trying to deal with what in the world was going on throughout the rest of those games. I don't think Drew saw himself with a position to win, especially with that big game 1 happening there. And sure enough, ends up in a game 3 that almost was able to be closed out.
And there it is, Rolling Iron taking the knockout. With the way that math works, there's no Pokemon that can knock out this Hisuian Goodra. It has 130 HP, so it means Pokemon would need to deal 210 damage to knock it out, as Andrew will take the final turn of time. At least showing, hey, look, I've got all my Reggie Pokemon down. I could probably attack going forward, as we will see the final abilities be used. 1 final Ancient Wisdom to power up the Reggie Alecki. Just putting a single energy on, so maybe just trying to bring a trainer back from the discard pile, having a little fun. We saw him do a cool thing when we were walking around where he was able to like loop out an Ice Cube, so this card has probably provided a lot of usage in this for Drew throughout this tournament.
Yeah, he's gonna clean things up here with the Lost Vacuum added to the hand.
And looks like that will be 1 final turn for Samuel. No way to win this game, 4 prize cards left. At least play it out and see where the board would be at, but it's gonna be a tie between both of these players. No way to take 4 prize cards in 1 more turn with how things stand. And that will put each of these players at 9, 2, and 3. So very hard, potentially no guaranteed potential to make top cut. But that's how the game works sometimes. We've seen it's hard for these games to finish in 3. tie will happen between both of these competitors. 9, 2, and 3, still in a great spot to earn some championship points, but it looks like top 8 may not be in either of their futures.
Yeah, of course, both these players been around for a long time now, so we see the brotherly love as they understand the situation that they were put in there. It's unfortunate that they had to play in this spot and that things worked out the way they did, but time is going to be the winner unless we see, oh, it's actually going to be passed over there to Drew. Unbelievable.
Wow, what great sportsmanship. We saw that yesterday with Jeremy Jallin and Samuel scooping the game over to Drew Kenneth, giving him a chance to make it into top 8. Great sportsmanship. You love to see this.
Yeah.
When these competitors give it their all and acknowledge at the end of the day, saying, hey, if we tie, neither of us can make it into day 2. But if I give you the win, I'm not going to be able to move on, but move on in my name. Do your best. Do your best.
Yeah, I was almost like hinting at that as we talked about like their history together. They've been playing on the West Coast for over a decade now. We've seen both these players do so well at events, and of course they're so familiar with each other. You have to think that they interact all the time, and just to see that they understand the situation that they were in, it's unfortunate that they get put there, and he actually just goes ahead and gives them the win, gives his brother an opportunity there to move on potentially into the top 8. We love to see that.
Great sportsmanship, great history between both of these players. Have been competing for several years in the Pokemon trading card game. Andrew Kenneth, after having a pretty rough start to day 2, as you said, went in at 8-0-1 playing Regigigas, was among a few top players at very solid records playing Regigigas at the top of the field. Started out poorly, pushed themselves to 9-2-2, being pretty much on, I need to win to stay in this tournament. Got this first win. This last match, going to be very interested on my end to follow Andrew and see, can he get there and make yet another top cut at a regional championship?
Yeah, I think he would